So on that note, with comic books, going back to video games here, obviously prices are down a lot across a lot of things. I don't know the next time we'll be talking about a record-breaking video game sale. Actually, funny enough, I guess we'll start there. What has to come to market at this point to be a record-breaking video game sale? There's a few that come to my mind, but I'm curious what you might think there.
Yeah, well, for sure, an early Mario.
That's kind of it, isn't it?
I think would be the highest performer for sure. I mean, we saw a pretty decent Zelda.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I agree, pretty decent. But you know, the narrative around that Zelda, if you go into the wider sphere, is still it sold for 700,000 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's sold for 288.
Yeah,
it's awful, crashing.
Yeah.
Destroyed.
Well, you know, it's like video games just have that unfortunate circumstance of coming up right before the everything bubble. You know, they were the hot new kid on the block, and then this COVID crap happened, and then everything spiraled out of control. So, you know, it's like, I think if video games had been more established before then, we might not have seen this kind of attitude where, like, you know, stuff crashes and then it's like, oh, look at that, you know.
I agree with you fully.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't discount the whole WATA narrative that happened.
Yeah.
Carl Job's video.
Well, everything is a catalyst, you know, like WATA coming in the market was the catalyst, really.
Yes, for sure. And then, I mean, you have activity, obviously, but so yeah, an early Mario, probably the gloss sticker Mario that exists.
Yeah.
It still has never hit the market. That's a big thing of misinformation, disinformation, where people see the Pawn Stars episode and they see the 100K Mario sale, and they don't understand if they're looking at a different copy of Mario or the same. They see that they think $2 million sale that happened for one copy, the 9.8.
Right.
And everyone's just like, oh, that's Mario Bros. Like, there is no different copies here.
Yeah.
So that gloss sticker Mario Bros. That sold for $100,000 has still never hit the market again.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, it is still owned by Jim Halpern and Co. and actually held at Heritage Auction, which I guess also Bronte still holds some of the ownership as well. That was the newest thing from that. Have you kept up with the WATA deposition?
No.
So in it, I guess the sale of the $100,000 Mario Bros., right? It went to a group of people, Jim Halpern et al., and Bronte, Dan, also retained a bit of ownership, but I don't know how much.
Okay.
I don't know if that's known yet. So a certain percentage of, I assume that's how it was laid out. Percentage of future sales still go back to him.
Yeah. Well, I could see that being, you know, a legitimate argument for, you know, selling in the first place. It's like, well, if I'm going to get rid of this thing that's one of a kind, you know.
Oh, I agree 100%.
You know, let's, if it happens, then let's, you know, retain the slight ownership stake in it. You know, that's a reasonable thing to do.
I think
if I had something like that.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's now being framed as a fake sale because he retained a piece of ownership. That's the narrative.
That makes no sense.
Hey, I'm not here to say it does or doesn't, but that is the large thing being pushed, is it was a scam, not a sale, because he is holding a percentage of ownership. I think Mark Cuban just sold the Maverick not long ago. That was the big headline, right? Like, Mark Cuban sells Maverick. He retained like 23%.
Well, yeah.
And my biggest guess here then is with this, because obviously retaining ownership in these is not weird. It'd be the non-disclosure of retained ownership. I don't know if that, like, I don't know where that stipulation lies in actual law context.
Right.
But that's the only...
Well, I wonder why it would matter if it's a private sale. It's not.
I think it's not because of the how public it was made.
Oh, I see. But, you know, it's not an SEC-controlled asset.
Well, yes.
So...
that goes into that argument of it's not illegal.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know the specifics surrounding it, but,
yeah.
You know, it's not a stock. It's a tangible asset. So it's like, well, I don't know if it's legally required to.
I know. And in the actual
you can't buy shares in it.
The actual legal framework, I don't know if it matters.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because like I can't go and buy a share in it.
Exactly.
Unless I like know the owner, it's like, well, hey, if I pay you this much, can you give me like a? But then you might have to like create a LLC around it or something.
Yeah, there might have to.
Because that's what Masterworks does with artwork. If you invest in artwork through the Masterworks app, each piece is like its own LLC, and it's all SEC regulated. So
yeah, makes sense.
So, I mean, you know, that's not the case here, but that's how they do it.
It can be done.
Yeah, if you want public access to investing in a tangible asset like Rally or something.
Those companies still exist? Rally, Liquid, all those.
I don't know. If
Those
they
are
do,
the
I certainly
the
haven't seen
hottest
anything.
thing in the bubble. Hey,
Yeah,
fractionalized ownership.
yeah,
Which, I mean, that is essentially what this would be then, fractionalized ownership of the Mario Bros. Game, but I don't know how that's actually gonna play out. That
yeah,
was just the biggest thing that was being reported on,
yeah,
you know, coming out of the deposition. Because
yeah,
the WATA lawsuit's still ongoing.
yeah.
We'll see what
And I
shakes
mean,
out.
to me, there's no difference between you and I. Like, if we see a game we like, it's like, hey, do you want to go like halfsies on it or
Now,
something?
people hated that too, though.
Well,
Like,
whatever. I mean,
how
like,
dare you have shared ownership or, like, you're going after things you can't afford with other people's money.
yeah,
That's
that's
Isn't
no
that why
one.
the dentist got completely slammed? It was like,
I mean, yeah, but it's no one else's business but theirs. If you and I want to buy a game together, like, who cares? Like, if I don't want to put up all the money, it's like, yeah, well, let's just go halvesies on it. And
no, and there's a lot of things that aren't acquirable without other people,
yeah,
like, helping.
absolutely.
And I don't know, like, if you wanna own something, but neither here nor there, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I think it's really just it's a product of this kind of toxic subset that are making a bigger deal of it probably than it is. It's easy to look at it, I think, and point the finger at it, but at the end of the day, it's really that sale, I think, is probably no one's business but theirs
Yeah,
because it's not a publicly controlled asset. So,
and I think a lot of people try to look at this like it is,
yeah.
and not really
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not understand, but not accept that
Yeah.
this is just how this is, though,
Yeah.
and if you don't wanna be part of it, don't be.
Yeah.
Like
Well, if you and I bought a game for 2 grand and we both paid $1,000, no one would care. They only care because it's worth
Big
a lot of
money.
money.
Big money,
Yeah.
and getting, like,
It's only
news
the
articles.
Yeah, it's only the amount
Yeah,
that makes
but
it noteworthy, yeah.
in that, I see still videos on YouTube coming up of people who are big in the video game sphere talking about graded video games still, price action, what's happening, and everything still goes back to 2021. Everything is still related to the literal peaks of the market,
Yeah,
and the narrative is still graded. Games are crashing.
right.
Like,
Well,
I
and it's mostly by people who don't really know anything, so or have no stake.
it's people with no stake. I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's certain games that some of these people own
yeah,
that they still say might have or should have sold higher. I mean, some of them were saying NWC should have sold for more, even though it sold for $84,000,
yeah,
which is literally tying a record price of this game for a 6.5
yeah,
from 2021.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what? That game should sell for more, but no other.
Well, I think the people who are looking at this kind of stuff need to realize that in general, on the whole, auction prices are much less than private sales.
For a lot of it,
Like for antiques, it's no different than like fine instruments. Like I've done a lot with violins and stuff, with follow auctions and all that. And in general, prices for those kinds of things at auction are much less than private sales.
that's interesting,
Yeah,
actually.
especially when you get to the upper echelons of things, like the really fine stuff. That's the kind of stuff where people don't want price history. Like, why would you sell it at open auction?
Yeah, well, even when we were doing that comic books there, talking about them, all those like record sales, most of them were private sale.
Hmm.
Like 3.25 million and stuff. That was those were private sales.
Yeah, well, that's really how you get the most exclusive stuff is private sale because most people don't auction off the cream of the crop stuff.
Pretty sure with NWC Gold, even the last sale that happened is rumored to be 350,000. Now it's at pretty good authority that did take place. I
Mhm.
trusted people are saying that, but private sale like
Yeah,
that didn't make news headlines. Nothing like
yeah,
that just happened. I don't even know if other people who talk about this market are aware it happened
probably not.
because it is just such a high end private.
Hmm. Yeah, as soon as you start crossing that threshold of really A plus plus blue chip material, you're not going to find that stuff at auction generally. I mean, NWC is considered, obviously a really nice item,
Yeah,
but
it's weird how many of those have come to auction.
but at the same time, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, the top 90.
You know, so
It's not, impossible.
yeah, it's not impossible.
Top 90 is a lot.
Yeah, it's got the history, but when you start getting into NWC Gold, that's where it gets
Yeah.
really difficult.
And that's why we haven't seen one auction, even with
Yeah.
all the prices going crazy.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who'd want to take a shot at that. Like it's a gamble.
It is, yeah, with a lot of money.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what actually has to happen then in this whole hobby for the narrative to not be graded games are a scam, prices only go down? Like how much time needs to pass or what needs to happen for people to just realize that like, hey, factory sealed copies of vintage video games aren't that common to come across, and people do desire them to the tune of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
It's not money laundering. It's not like what has to happen in this market.
I mean, it's just time. In the reality of things, 5 years is short term for an investment of some kind. So I think you have to be looking at decades.
Like, yeah, actual decades.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really, for new people to enter and prices to kind of stabilize. And there's so many factors, market conditions, all that. We're still relatively off the hump of the COVID years.
We are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of
Really,
stuff is
really
still
1 year, 1.5 years out, maybe.
well, if we wanna call 2021 the peak, I mean, we're coming
Yeah. But I mean, 2022 stuff was still pretty high.
yeah, it's still pretty nuts across the board, I would
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know, we weren't seeing a real crash in 2022, early
I
2022
agree.
quite yet.
I agree.
So, yeah, we're still pretty close to
Early
that.
to mid 2023, I'd say we started seeing actual well, I mean, still some stuff is still seeing bottoms, but
Yeah.
a lot of stuff was bottoming,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we can now look back on a 3 to 6 month horizon.
Mhm.
Some stuff is actually doing decent.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes to what you said about decades have to pass, where we can actually see a graph where it's like, oh, hey, we spiked all the way up here. We went down to a more organic level.
Yeah.
And for the past 6 years, this game has been trending between 3 to 6,000.
Yeah.
Like, if you want one, man, it's been 7 years now. Do you want one or not? This is the price.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you have to look at it like you do an overall market fund at some point. It's like the people who buy into it and then see, "Oh, it's crashing, I better sell." Those are the people who lose. Over time, you look at it and you kind of account for the fluctuations, the gains and the losses.
Well,
That's
yeah,
that's kind of where you see the stabilization.
a lot of these markets aren't going to move linear.
No.
That's the thing. And I think a lot of people who enter into alternative assets don't realize it's going to move so non-linearly.
Yeah.
Like, in 1 year, yeah, you might lose 40%, and the next year everything could double.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really know how it's gonna play out. It isn't gonna be just, like, 2,400, 2,600, 2,700. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, you don't expect prices just collapse the way they did, and I think a lot of people who did get in, I guess it's separating the investment and speculation from actual people who wanna be here, and I feel like a lot of the narrative around this market or talk about this market doesn't do any kind of job to separate that
Mhm.
of people who actually want this stuff, or even acknowledging that there are people who actually want this stuff to collect, buy, like whatever, right? The same way someone buys a complete in box video game. You don't need a box and manual in order to play the game.
Mhm.
That's purely collecting.
Yeah.
Like, you want that stuff just because it's cool.
Yeah.
You don't need a box.
Yeah.
And the same goes with sealed at that point. You're buying something to have a trophy. And a lot of people who do participate in this market are buying this stuff because you want that physical representation on your shelf, on your whatever, to have and represent the game.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's crazy for something to remain sealed when it was such an expensive item to begin with.
That's
know?
why it shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's, in my opinion, that's what makes it so damn fun to do.
Yeah.
Is because you're going after things in such a difficult manner
Yeah.
where they shouldn't exist.
Yeah, and I think really the only thing that slows the growth of the hobby is just the amount of knowledge you need to really feel confident buying something. Think like just it's not like comics. It's just like it's a book. Never came sealed.
Yeah,
It
no,
is what it is, right?
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
It's complicated.
And
So
I would say that's why we have grading companies. But everyone hates one of them. Arguably, the most popular grading company is the most hated thing in all the video games.
yeah, I
So
mean,
kind of funny in that regard.
yeah, whatever. Who
Just
cares?
gotta wait for more time to pass, hey? It's crazy. I just we talk about comics in such a nonchalant way of like $5 million sales, and even in the wider sphere, it never comes back to money laundering or these big scam. Like, I don't. Maybe it is just because the hobby itself is so much bigger, or people just understand or something. But it's just so weird to me when you
Yeah.
get the total. It's like trading cards too. Trading card grading and stuff. Like, yeah, PSA is a scam. It's like a meme at that point, right? Everyone knows that you can get different grades from PSA and stuff, but there's no like money laundering, or they're taking your games or your cards or whatever. They're swapping them. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's very odd to me.
Yeah. Well, the proliferation of social media has really probably I've never looked into the research of this, but I'm sure there has been an incredible uptick in conspiracy theory prevalence.
There
thank-
has to be.
Thanks to anonymous commenting. I have no doubt that there are people out there who form their entire worldview off of reading comments on social media. You know, it sounds really sad when I say it that way, but I'm sure it's true.
No, I don't think you're wrong.
It's one of those things where like I don't know it for a fact, but it's probably true.
Yeah. You read it in a comment somewhere.
I read it in a comment. Yeah, and I made my worldview based on a comment.
Yeah, you saw a rumor somewhere that was true, and it's like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. A lot of the comments sound true enough.
Yeah.
Where people, I don't know, people who don't care just read a comment. And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
If someone else thinks that or says that, like,
yeah.
And then you mimic that or parrot it to someone else, and it's,
Yeah.
all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's really the anonymity that feeds the toxicity. As soon as you start like talking with someone who you know their real name or something, it's a bit different.
Oh yeah, you can't be an idiot all of a sudden.
Yeah, people are a lot less brave when it's like that.
All of a sudden you can track their words back to them, and it's like, oh wow, you're actually saying that, hey?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
So in 5 years from now, will we still be hearing about WATA games being a scam?
I mean, you still hear about CGC being a scam, so it's been around for 20 years. That will never end, I don't think.
Okay.
It's the people who trumpet that kind of view are usually the ones who are not collectors at all. They like to crap on things. I'd be surprised if there was a serious collector out there who made that their whole shtick.
There's
was crapping on grading companies.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some people, who are like very serious, who just like, I don't ever need my stuff graded. I don't want to grade it. Like that will
that's
exist.
fine. You don't need to.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing too.
You literally don't
have
to.
Don't use it then.
But if you go to sell something, don't be surprised if you get a little bit less.
Yeah, don't be salty when it's not verified, not confirmed, and no one wants it.
Yeah, literally, because it's like, we have to trust your word on what the condition is, and hopefully the photos are good enough. Like, that's why grading companies exist in the first place, is to remove that barrier.
Yes.
That bias.
Makes life easier for everyone involved.
Yeah, exactly.
But I understand that I'm biased towards grading, so it's like, I enjoy it. It is what it is. Just, I do wonder how the whole hobby is going to evolve in that sense.
Yeah.
In the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. I think really the population that tends to grow is the more serious collectors. The people who are trying to build something, curate their shelf, get stuff they love. I don't think the casuals really have much influence in that regard.
It'll just kind of, I guess.
The filthy casuals.
I guess, At the end of the day, the money will dictate where the hobby kind of goes.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, it's really about the money someone pays for something.
Yeah, and if people are going to pay more for graded copies, we will see.
Which is common sense.
I agree. It's common sense as long as you understand what the hell grading even means.
Yeah.
That like not every graded copy is equal. Because I think video games are still like way behind the 8 ball on that.
Yeah.
It's like,
and that's, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I watched a YouTube video the other day where someone like, the thumbnail and the title was like they got like their holy grail or something impossible, and they bought like a no seal Mortal Kombat Game Boy game or something. It's like, and it's a PAL copy. I'm like, oh man. It's like you need to research this a little bit.
What I mean.
Yeah.
I saw on Reddit someone like was super happy, and it's great for them, right? But they bought like a 7.5 A+ F-Zero Player's Choice. And it's like, there's no price you could have paid for that is worth it.
Yeah. Sorry to burst your bubble.
Yeah, even at $150, you could just buy a 9.8 A++. And I think that's the big lack of understanding. The other thing they bought was an 8.0 or 8.5 Star Fox CIB.
Yeah.
For $250. Yeah. And they were like, I got a great deal. The seller gave me half off. And I'm just like, no, man.
Half off is still overpriced.
Yeah. Why do you think you got 50% off, my guy?
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it just, and I think honestly, price charts hurt this, because they have on their algorithm thing, it says graded, and it just has one price.
Yeah.
And that is just.
And what does that mean?
Nothing. It means nothing.
Yeah.
It's far worse than CIB. It's far worse than even sealed. At least one price there, you get a little bit more of an average, but with graded, it means nothing.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, games are difficult. It's not like comics.
Jordan, if someone had a graded price for a comic too, you'd be like, what's a grade?
Yeah, but I mean,
you'd ask the most obvious question.
You don't have to worry about like Player's Choice comic or something like that.
What about that Jeweler's Variant thing? They got
maybe, but that's like
goofy.
There's usually only one
variant
of a comic, or maybe like a newsstand versus a subscription edition.
Sounds complicated to me.
Yeah, but it's not like 14 Mario prints or whatever
Yeah, 14 Marios,
you
10
know,
Zeldas.
come on.
Even with Modern Warfare 2 on 360, there's like 9 prints. I think there's like 3 that look like Black Label or something. So,
Yeah.
it's not complicated if people care.
Yeah.
I just don't know if people want to care.
Yeah.
Or if we're just way too early for people caring about stuff like that.